The Unveiling. In the heart of Liberia, where ancient trees whispered secrets to the wind and the moonlight painted eerie shapes on the forest floor, lay our village, a place steeped in tradition and superstition. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of spirits that roamed the woods, of ancestors watching over us, and of dark forces that could corrupt the soul. At the center of these tales was Ma Maimah, a woman whose name was synonymous with fear and dread. She lived on the outskirts, in a small hut that seemed to meld into the shadows of the forest. Ma Maimah was not always a figure of terror. Once, she was known as a healer, a woman who could mend the body and soothe the soul with her knowledge of herbs and ancient chants. But something changed, something dark took root in her heart, turning her from a guardian to a malevolent force. It was a night unlike any other, with the moon hanging low and full, casting its silvery glow across the village. The air was thick with the scent of blooming night flowers and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. I had always been a curious soul, drawn to the mysteries that others shunned. That night, my curiosity led me to the edge of the village, to the place where Ma Maimah's hut stood shrouded in mist. As I approached, a soft, haunting melody reached my ears. It was a lullaby, but unlike any I had heard before. The notes were laced with sorrow and pain, a dirge that seemed to speak directly to my soul. My feet moved of their own accord, carrying me closer to the source of the sound. I knew I should turn back, that nothing good could come from this, but I was powerless against the pull of that mournful tune. I reached the window of Ma Maimah's hut and peered inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The sight that met my eyes was like something from a nightmare. Ma Maimah stood before a small fire, her face illuminated by its flickering light. Her eyes, once warm and kind, now glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. In her hands, she held a doll, a crude figure made of straw and twine. The doll's face was twisted in a grimace of agony, and with each verse of her dark lullaby, Ma Maimah twisted its limbs, her actions mirroring the torment she sang of. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body refused to obey. I was rooted to the spot, a silent witness to this macabre ritual. As Ma Maimah continued her song, the air around her seemed to shimmer and distort, as if reality itself was bending to her will. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on shapes that were both familiar and horribly twisted. Then, without warning, Ma Maimah's head snapped up, her eyes locking onto mine with a gaze that seemed to pierce my very soul. In that moment, I felt a surge of fear so intense that it was almost paralyzing. Her lips curled into a smile devoid of any warmth or kindness. It was a smile that promised pain and suffering, a smile that said she knew I was there, watching. With a flick of her wrist, Ma Maimah sent the doll tumbling into the fire, its straw body igniting in an instant. The flames roared to life, casting grotesque shadows on the walls of the hut. The air was filled with the smell of burning straw and something else, something acrid and bitter that made my stomach churn. I stumbled back from the window, my heart racing. I had seen enough. No, I had seen too much. I turned and fled, my feet pounding against the earth as I raced back to the safety of the village. But even as I ran, I could feel Ma Maimah's eyes on me, could hear the echo of her dark lullaby in my ears. That night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the twisted face of the straw doll, heard the haunting melody of Ma Maimah's song. My mind was a whirl of fear and confusion. What had I? Days turned into weeks, yet the memory of that haunting night lingered in my mind like a shadow. The eerie melody of Ma Maimah's lullaby played on an endless loop in my thoughts, and the image of the twisted straw doll was seared into my memory. It was as if I had glimpsed a fragment of a nightmare that refused to let go. Little did I know, the true horror was only beginning to unfold. Strange occurrences began to plague our village. The first sign was the crops. Fields that were once lush and green with promise began to wither inexplicably. Stalks of corn, heads of wheat, and rows of vegetables all succumbed to an unseen blight, turning brown and brittle overnight. The village elders tried every remedy they knew, but nothing could reverse the damage. Desperation and hunger loomed on the horizon. Then came the illnesses. Children who were once full of energy and laughter became weak and listless. They complained of headaches and stomach pains, their eyes dull and vacant. Mothers wept and fathers grew desperate as the village's future seemed to hang in the balance. The local healer, a kind woman named Ma Maimah, was at a loss. She had never seen anything like it, and her herbs and potions offered little relief. Whispers of a curse spread through the village like wildfire. The villagers spoke in hushed tones, casting wary glances towards Ma Maimah's hut. Fear and suspicion took root, and it wasn't long before fingers began to point. The memory of her dark ritual, the straw doll, and the haunting lullaby were shared in fearful whispers. Many believed that Ma Maimah had unleashed a curse upon us, her malevolence seeping into every corner of our lives. I could not shake the feeling that they were right. The sense of dread that had settled over the village felt like a tangible presence, the poisonous fog that choked the life out of everything it touched. Determined to uncover the truth, I sought out the village elders. These were the wise ones, the keepers of our history and law, and I hoped they might have answers. The elders gathered in a small, dimly lit hut, their faces etched with concern. I recounted what I had seen that night, the dark ritual and the twisted doll. They listened in silence, their expressions growing graver with each word. When I finished, they exchanged uneasy glances before one of them, a frail old man named George, spoke. Long ago, before any of us were born, George began, there was a time when the forests echoed with the cries of those who had crossed Ma Maimah's path. She was not always as she is now. There was a time when she was a healer, a protector of our people. But something happened, something dark and terrible. She was consumed by a power that is as ancient as the earth itself, the power that grants her the ability to twist and manipulate the very fabric of life. The other elders nodded in agreement. Another elder, the woman named Ajoa, added, "We have always known that Ma Maimah was not to be trifled with. Her wrath is swift and terrible, and her vengeance knows no bounds. She is capable of unimaginable horrors, and it seems that her anger has now turned towards us." Their words sent a chill down my spine. The legends of Ma Maimah's dark powers were older than time itself, and it seemed that those powers had been unleashed upon our village. Armed with this knowledge, I knew I had to confront Ma Maimah to find a way to break the curse that was destroying our lives. With a heavy heart and a determined spirit, I set out into the depths of the forest. The path ahead was treacherous, the trees closing in around me like a living, breathing entity. Their branches reached out like gnarled fingers, eager to snatch me away. The air grew colder and heavier with each step, the oppressive weight of the curse pressing down on me. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, the light of the moon barely penetrated the thick canopy above. Shadows danced and flickered at the edge of my vision, and every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through my body. Yet, I pressed on, guided by a sense of dread and determination. In a clearing bathed in an eerie, unnatural light, I saw her, Ma Maimah. She stood tall and menacing, her eyes alight with a fierce intensity that sent a chill down my spine.